Hello, my name is Bob Lancaster, and Louie asked me if I would take a little time out and talk to you guys about my testimony. And I have learned through my journey in recovery that testimony is something the Lord uses to share what He's done in our lives. And even though it might be a little frightening in the beginning, which I guarantee you mine was, you learn that this is a tool, and it's an honor to get to share what has happened and what He's brought you through, and I want to share a little bit of that today. My journey of the choices that I made began early on in life with alcohol and alcoholism, and it was a slow process that I went through. I think anytime the enemy uses something against us, it never is all at once. It's a slow, gradual climb, and that's what happened in my story. In college, I drank socially, and then over the years it developed further and further until full-blown alcoholism. But I tried for 18 years. I thought that I had this. I thought that I could do this alone. And I'm here to share with you today that, we are never operating completely as ourselves. There's either one of two spirits operating in us or through us. And at that time, it wasn't the spirit of light. It wasn't God working through me. I was allowing the enemy to control my life using something as alcohol and my developing of alcoholism. And that made me make choices and decisions in my life that I can't say that I'm proud of, but I look back today and I know that God can use anything for His glory. And He's taken that testimony of what I chose to do and He's turned it for His good. And a little bit of what that looks like is that, early on in my recovery, the word willingness became very important to me, because that word meant that I was taking part in my recovery. I was willing to listen. I was willing to be teachable. I was willing to be quiet. So many times early on, my experience has been in recovery that we just can't stop talking long enough to hear. And that's something that I had to learn. But once we become willing, then we're able to hear. We're able to allow the Lord to place someone in our lives. In my case, it was my sponsor, and who's still my mentor today, to speak life into me because he had gone before me. And we have to be willing to be teachable. So that willingness was a core value that I found to be very helpful for me and very important for me in the beginning. As I continued on that path of recovery, and that I think back to when I first gave my testimony, there was a lot of the darkness I talked about. There was a lot of the bad choices I talked about. But as we move forward in God's kingdom, that kind of falls away, and we seem to now want to talk more about what He's done and what He continues to do based on our choices today, where we involve Him and include Him. And that's what I want to talk about today is all the doors that He's opened and all the opportunities He's given. As we hung around those people in our past, we made choices in those circles. But today, as I hang around the people He's placed in my path, I make different choices. I make choices based on what He wants for me, based on who I am in Him, because I no longer am that man. That man is dead. I struggled at one point with being able to, my recovery came through a 12-step program. And I wanted to identify with the ones that were still struggling. And so I chose to say those words like, "Hi, I'm Bob, I'm an alcoholic." But today, I'm not an alcoholic, and I don't speak death over my life, I speak life over my life. So by sharing where I was, that identifies that I was an alcoholic. But sharing where I am today, that shares the hope that God can do for anyone willing to follow His path and listen and remain teachable. But in that journey since recovery, the doors that have opened, it's just amazing. I'm wowed every day with all of the opportunities and the people that He places. The teachings, early on I shared some in my testimony that I didn't know a lot of Scripture, and the enemy will use that against you, and he'll make you feel like you're lesser than, and all those tricks he plays. But if you remain open to what the Lord will do, one of the first, along with my sponsor or mentor, in the first meeting I went to, he introduced me to a woman who is now a dear friend of mine, who I always refer to jokingly as a walking, talking Bible. And as she interacted with me in a friendship level, she kept sharing scriptures and conversation, and I didn't realize at the time the growing was happening. The thing that I'd asked the Lord to help with, there He had done it right there. He placed someone in my life. And so be open to that. Be aware of who He places in and around your life, and see those as opportunities. Something else, as I was preparing this morning and praying for the Lord to tell me what He wanted me to share or talk about, was, and this is big for me personally, and hopefully there's someone out there that will gain something from this, is seeing things from God's perspective versus the world's perspective. And the world will look at all the choices we made and all the things that have happened because of the choices we've made, and they will cause you to feel bad about yourself. They will call you names like failure and a loser and a drunkard and all those labels. But if we change our perspective and we look at it through God's perspective, we start to see that those things that happened are now what God uses as tools to make us able to reach the ones that are still lost, to speak the lingo, to understand and have compassion, which He had compassion on anyone that He healed before He healed them. And that same compassion today I feel with each person that still struggles. In my case, it's mostly with people struggling with alcohol. But there's so many things other than alcohol and drugs. There are, there's pride issues. There's just issues throughout life in general. And so many times the enemy wants us to believe that it only pertains to drugs and alcohol. And I'm here to tell you today, there are way many more than that. So if you are someone that is still struggling and you still feel like, I don't know the way out, look around you and seek to find people and that the Lord will place in your life. Pray and ask for Him to reveal, to place someone, and then pause and look for that person, because they're there. He will place them. He will put them in front of you. And all we have to do is have our eyes open and be focused outward instead of inward. And when we do that, I feel that that's when the journey begins. And I know for myself, the recovery continues. Just the freedom from alcohol, that was the first step. And then as I'm willing to continue to walk further and get closer to Him, He continues to peel away the layers of the onion and get to the core of trying to make me more, to seek to be more like Him, which is what I want today. And He will continue to do a work in you as long as you're continued to remain teachable. So I encourage you, everyone watching, that this is for everyone. This isn't for a select few. And if you are seeking, I think that in your earnestly asking in prayer, He will help you. He always does. That's what He did for me. I thank you for listening, and I appreciate every opportunity to share this message of hope. Thanks.